Just like many people, this was my first, and actually, I had seen it in parts before the movie actually made it to the United States. Um, and I saw it. A friend of mine had a when I was really young had a party, and it was playing in the background, and with no sound because it was like sixth grade, fifth, sixth grade boy girl party. So it was like one of those kind of things. And she had it for some reason playing in the background, and I saw the sequence of him running down the roof, and I thought it was really entranced by it. But then I remembered that I was at a boy girl party, and I
Yeah.
really wanted to get
I wasn't there for the anime.
I wasn't right exactly. The anime was not a thing at that moment. But then later on, I would actually see more clips of it, believe it or not, in Cliffhanger, which is the arcade that in about 3 or 4 in the mid '80s, and I used to play that stupid game right next to Dragon's Lair. Also tried my hand at that game, failed miserably at both, at a roller skating rink, and so that's how I lost my money in my
Yeah.
tweens. Um, but, uh, but yeah, that was like the first movie. But when I finally got to see it in college, it was just I didn't know who Miyazaki was at that point, but it was that first sequence, which I guess we'll talk about later, where they're running away from the casino, and I was just like, "That's pretty damn cool." And then I got hooked into the movie, and then later on, I got hooked into the anime franchise and the whole thing, and it's just wonderful. Lupin is one of my favorite big franchises.
I only got to know that there was a Lupin when Phil did it at a Star City as a cosplay, and then literally a complete misunderstanding about Lupin the Third. I thought literally it was the third series, so I was like, oh, I don't think I'll get into that because I'd have to watch Lupin 1 and Lupin 2 before I get Lupin 3, and it seems like a lot to go through. Like, well, damn it, if I had just looked at things a little more carefully, I might have seen how I could,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was cool. I was like, yeah, yeah, I can see where this goes now. Good. And action, lots and lots of action.
Action. Yep.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
brilliant. I
The
love that
hurdling,
sequence.
hurdling with
I could
$5 billion. Like, wow.
and as they're running, they're like they got like this grim determination in their face at the beginning of the short sequence, and then as they're like leaping, long leaps, and then running, leaping, they get these big grins on their face. It's awesome.
And piling into a Fiat 500. I'm like, wow, okay, so, you get the whole, Italian chase kinda thing going on there, the little Fiat. I'm like,
Hmm.
nice, okay. Hmm.
Hmm. That's why it
Ah,
made me go, yeah.
that's awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's anime. I mean, that's because I mean, you see
It's
Lupin when
anime.
they put this huge bag, it's bigger than the sunroof. He's like, and then it's just like in the car. It's like, well, damn.
I wish it were that easy.
Yep. Because he's a
He was able
gentleman
to
thief. He's a
he
gentleman
was able
thief.
because he was able to identify it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was able to identify it from a previous clip.
That is true. Yeah. See, I took it from that it was setting the moral tone for it. That Lupin could just steal stuff, get in a gunfight, and do all
So,
kinds of, whatever he basically wants to do. He's obviously got the skills to it. His right hand man has like an anti tank rifle, so they really wanted to. They could go completely ape on any of these situations and get away with it. But they take the moral high ground. Oh, we stole $5 billion. It's all fake. Well, screw it. Throw it out the car. Who cares? It's like good.
take revenge on the people that made me steal $5 billion worth of fake money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
With all 3,500 inhabitants.
Yeah.
All of them apparently live in the damn castle.
I was just gonna say Heidi
Yeah.
because there's all this lovely alpine scenery. I'm like, oh, it's Heidi. A little.
Little?
No, no, they went for a whole big old bath in that. Like, look what we're doing here.
There's like so much on it. They made mention of Italian mountain cities and Tiber estuary photo book where he drew from, and it's and that kind of stuff. And they were going for that Italian, obviously peninsula look. I'm kind of looking at my notes here, and when you look at the pictures, you're just like looking at that castle, except for the one castle where Clarice is kept in that part of the castle. You don't really see that, but the rest of it, you see these kind of castles like that, and you're just like, wow, it's just like from page to this, and they're just. I thought they were beautiful renditions in the movie.
Oh, and by the way, I really loved the fact that Nausicaa was driving a Citroen. Oh my gosh! I mean, no, I'm sorry, wrong character. As soon as I saw her, I'm like, "Hey, it's a Citron Dolly." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Then I get closer, I'm looking at the girl, I'm like, "Really?
Well,
Are we in the Valley of the Winds by any chance in this little duchy that's here?"
Citron.
A Citron? Citroen or whatever? Uh, well, which explains why they were drawn so effectively, just they were sitting in the parking lot. Mm, yeah. Yeah. How the hell that
Yeah.
Fiat survived everything it did,
I
I am doubtful of its qualities of that nature.
I just have to say though, he is an exceptional driver to drive through that bushes and just having everything smacking in the face, including a bird. Because I know what would have happened if a branch slapped me in the face through an open
You'd
windshield. I
be
would have flipped the damn
blind.
car. It would first
Yeah.
burst into flames and go over the cliff. You know.
Well, how about driving up a cliff? Driving up a cliffside to get to the top to drive back down. I'm like, "Okay, suspension of disbelief." Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I meant to ask, was there any significance like the piece you've got right here, C14, and the Fiat is like, what is it, R22 or E22 or something? Is this like, in Disney how they use the thing, it's like the Cal Arts classroom where a lot of the animators had taken art classes, it's like A112. It's like, do the R22. Do these things have any meaning to them particularly that we're aware of?
Don't know.
Okay. 'Cause, I mean, they seem to be fairly specific and fairly clearly displayed where it's like, "Huh, okay."
Yeah. I actually spent it's later on in the movie. I actually spent like 20 minutes looking up trying to look up the Japanese soldier down in the pit. I found something interesting, but that has nothing to do with the Japanese soldier.
So that little
But yeah,
inscription that's in the wall, 1914, is that actually a
yeah.
person?
It is actually a person, but not it's not a Japanese. So the Japanese soldier by that name I could not find, or a spy by that name I could not find.
Hmm,
But there were a couple of things with the last name where one guy is considered to be the last ninja, and another person right now who was actually born the year that the movie came out, is actually a filmmaker right now. His first film is actually supposed to be due out in November.
wow, cool.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes. Well,
I have no idea.
she's
I've always
aware
wondered about that.
she's aware of what happens if the dude gets the ring. So, Lupin is somehow amazingly doesn't have a shattered spine. Don't know. No idea how you do that, but that's awesome. He's great.
Cranium, tough spine.
He's very flexible. Um, but she's more than well aware of what the Duke's going to do if he gets the two rings. So
Right.
that when I saw her soaking the glove at first, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then the guys come steaming around on the boat, and then later on, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like they going to capture her. The car's wrecked. You guys are down here. It's very unlikely to get out of the country. So what do you do? personally, I'd throw the ring in the water. But the next best thing is to just crumple it up in the glove and then kind of, oh yeah, oh I don't know where the ring went. So, yeah,
Right.
yeah, right. Yeah, where he just takes off. And he's just quietly taking off in the ruins of the ducal palace, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is and not again knowing any of the other Lupin kind of things. I'm like, gosh, he seemed, isn't he like in a rush or something? What's he? Why
That's
is
what
he
I
just
was gonna.
walking around? I'm like, well, okay,
That's
must
what I
be
was gonna say.
significant.
You can tell this is definitely a Miyazaki movie because in a lot of like in the anime, what you just said is exactly what he does. It's very fast paced movement, 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 and Lupin is always thinking very quickly ahead of time. And this is this unusual scene you don't really see in a lot of the rest of the franchise of him just sitting there. And I mean, you'll see him sitting there for like 3 seconds, and then he pops up and goes and he does his Lupin thing, and very energetic and adventurous. But here, he's like looking at things and contemplating, and it takes time.
Yeah,
So if it's very different than the Miyazaki Lupin is very different than the Monkey Punch Lupin.
right.
And
Brent, do you have a sound problem on your end? Captain, I was gonna say because Captain Laser Eye says, "Can't why can't I hear Brent?"
Can you hear me now? It sounds like my audio may have been off. That's great. Yay! Oh,
Oh,
crud. Let me see. I'm not seeing. Yeah, chat just came in. Okay, so my audio's been off this entire time. That's awesome. Um,
so it's like just Steve and I saying like random weird things.
yeah.
Like,
Um,
oh,
so here's what I think we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to start
recap.
over. Yeah. So. Oh, sorry guys. That's my mistake. That sucks.
This is how we work it every single time. Have
This
we
is
had
true.
a single
something
time where everything
happened.
went perfect?
Mm.
And if it did, then it's going to be one of those things where like one of us will be sitting there talking, and all of a sudden it'll be like,
Yeah,
"Oh no,
exactly.
earthquake!"
Mhm.
We had no stream problems, so there's got to be a natural disaster coming. Like, cool.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's just start over.
We're only 24 minutes into it, so we can
Yeah, we can recap.
do a
The
quick refresh.
news may start late, everyone. All right. So, Castle Cagliostro. For those just joining us now, we had some audio issues, so we're going to be moving a little quickly through the beginning of this movie. Cagliostro, the first Lupin movie by Hayao Miyazaki, or the first movie by Hayao Miyazaki, directed by Hayao Miyazaki, based on the long-running Lupin the Third TV series. And for me, it was my first Lupin movie. I've since seen a fair amount of Lupin. John and Steve?
First for me.
It was a first for me, and as I said before, the first time I saw it was one beautiful clip of him running down the side of the
Roof.
castle at a fifth grade boy girl party, at which I quickly remembered where I was and what my intent on what I needed to do, which was not watch anime, find a girl.
You were.
So, but then went on and saw more clips off of a arcade game, Laserdisc arcade game that was put into an actual arcade kind of style thing at a roller skating rink, and saw more by playing that game. And then years later, finally in college, seeing the whole thing, and then getting entranced and just jumping into the whole franchise.
I like the way that this film, as not having seen any of the Lupin before,
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't have to know who Lupin was.
Yeah.
I did
That's
not
right.
have to have any background on it.
Mhm.
This film was enjoyable
Mhm.
just purely, and I think it in large measure, it probably helps a lot. No offense to Pink Panther, but having seen Pink Panther series, having
Yep.
seen James Bond kind of things, because
Mhm.
that that's the sort of not spy, but kind of sort of
Yeah.
along those same lines. It's like, so that really helps you sort of engage this without having to have any prior knowledge of Lupin.
Mhm.
And I think that
Yes.
worked out so well.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And
this,
indeed, go ahead.
and I was just gonna say, you can pick up on all the characters, the backstories,
Mhm.
really quick. I think there was somebody on Discord who was asking if they needed to see the anime series or read the manga. Absolutely not. You can
Nope.
you can just jump right into this movie.
Nope, totally.
Yeah, I mean, easy to do.
Mhm.
Yep. And indeed, let's talk about that opening. So it starts, as you were saying before, with these two people with bags of money, going down a wire, and very happily going down a wire, which tells you something. And then all the lights come on, and it's a casino that they're robbing. And then we get this lovely chase scene, not quite chase scene, actually, really escape scene, as they're running away.
Hurdle race.
The hurdle
Hurdle
race,
race, yes.
where we
The goofy grins.
with the goofy grins, and they're just they're clearly getting away with it. They've got it.
I like the motion in this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got, even though it's a steeplechase kind of race, and it's music, but just the slightly frenetic action, and then the graceful long glide.
Mhm.
And as they're doing it, there's just like trickles of money just flying out from behind them.
Just going down, and the casting with all ours in various different ways. Just breaking down. Some of them driving, breaking in half. One guy continue going, oh, what's going on? And then tires falling off. And then with the end thing, with the hood of one car coming up with the skull and bones, and I forget, they said something cheeky in there. And, it's better luck next time or something like that. And the whole scene ends with that sign, but there's just like, with what the part you're showing right now, Brent, is where the one tire kind of falls over.
Yep.
And you're just like, wow, okay, planned heist. Here you go.
Yeah.
Nice try, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, Goemon is in this scene, technically.
Which I like that part too. Not having background on Lupin. That you don't. That entire thing just explains the mind of Lupin and how planned and well orchestrated the things he's doing. So even though you have no idea, you've not seen anything, you haven't heard any of them talking, about how they're going to plan this heist. No, you just see what a skilled artisan in what he's doing. The wires down, the money out, all the wheels fall off, and it's like that just establishes cleanly his skills, his intelligence, and his cheeky nature.
Yes.
It's just like, wow, you get all of that in like less than a couple of minutes.
Yes.
It's just like, that's cool.
Yeah, we are less than a minute and a half into this movie, and we've already established all those things. And then we get the car going down the road. It's full of money. And then suddenly they realize, wait, this isn't quite what it seems to be. This is all fake money, and this is where we get this interesting question. We'll wait a second for Steve to come back in.
Yeah, so we lost Steve.
So one of the questions we talked about is, it's kind of interesting that Lupin has all this money that a government thought was real, but he throws it away. Like, that's perfectly valid money, in a sense that he could certainly use it. And I think this is, again, Miyazaki establishing the fact that this is not a movie about money. It's not a movie about crass commercialism, if you will. Lupin is a gentleman.
Well, it's also interesting that sort of when Lupin recognizes that it's counterfeit, as we had said that nobody could hear us discussing, taking the high road, and going with the moral, moral choice to say, nope, ditch it. It's nothing. But if you notice, and I couldn't call to mind at the exact moment, but there's plenty enough like television shows and Western movies that have people dump money out of a car as a way to like
escape,
get the cops to get bogged down in traffic, and people stop their cars and start picking up money. When Lupin starts dumping $5 billion and anybody driving down the road has no idea it's fake, nobody stops.
True.
Nobody like crash panics and then starts jumping out and grabbing cash. He just starts dumping it, and everything just kind of, people get out of the way of the cars and everything else, and it's just like, that's an interesting statement too, whether it's intentional or not, but it's like, nobody else cares.
Yeah.
It's a wild car thing going on. Somebody's dumping stuff out of the car, and it's almost one of those things where, like, for Japanese niceties, you'd be like, "Oh, how shameful that you're doing that! Why would you dump things like that? That is very wasteful."
Well,
like
also,
give a shame look and then move on.
This is Monaco.
Yeah.
So they're probably used to people dumping cash.
So they're just like, yeah, I got that much at home. It's okay.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Also, something you may notice, and this is an example of, again, Miyazaki is different. What's surprising about these shots? It's daytime.
Right.
They did the heist at night. It was dark.
Right.
But you can see, as they're doing the heist, it is daybreak.
It's getting to be dawn.
It is getting to be dawn. So what Miyazaki is telling you is that Lupin is moving into the light. Right? He's moving away from the thief into a more gentlemanly sort of behavior, into something, this connects with this old past story, potentially. I'm going to be, I'm going to deal with that aspect of my life. Again, just an interesting kind of detail planted into there. Okay. And so then we get the gorgeous opening credit sequence with that very James Bond-esque song.
Yeah.
I love the work of the steamer.
Yes.
Just like,
This is where it becomes a Miyazaki movie, where it's like, okay, steamers, we're gonna get a funky plane later, like Miyazaki's indulging himself.
Here's something pretty to look at while you're listening to the music, and we're trying to figure out the storyboard.
Exactly.
Okay, here you go.
Totally.
Steamer reminded me of like Ponyo kind of stuff, boats and stuff that are moving out of the harbor in Ponyo.
And then we get, and again, I love how they tell you things. We move into the nation of Cagliostro. We see Lupin in a disguise. So okay, that's something they can do. And then you start getting all these little bits and pieces of them talking and some of the backstory. I also love that you can see in the back of the Fiat these cup of noodles. And all the kind of food that they've got with them, and these constant cigarettes because it's the 70s. And then,
which I find it very interesting. It's like they are so resourceful and independent that they're not going, and you don't see them stopping at some place. Like they don't go to a Kabini, and get like onigiri and everything else, and then as part of their plan of going anywhere. It's like no, they are fully self-contained.
Yep.
They have. They set up the little burner. They make cup ramen, and they're fine. They don't have minimizes their footprint in anywhere that they are and keeps them undercover. I'm like, that's cool. That's some thinking right ahead there.
There's also a really clever moment in here when the Fiat gets a flat tire, and they get out and they do rock paper scissors to determine who's going to do it. And
John Ken Pong.
And you notice. They guessed the same thing as the other person like 4 times.
Right.
And that tells you, they're in sync. Right?
Yeah.
Like they really know each other extraordinarily well. And then, as we mentioned, the Heidi Girl of the Alps scenery, which they're definitely sort of pulling on there and making great use of. I think that's absolutely right. And then
the hills are alive with the sound of Lupin.
Exactly. And then, of course, Nausicaa drives by, and
exactly.
You gotta rescue Nausicaa. Funnily enough,
even just the camera angle for that is just like Miyazaki.
Exactly.
What do you know?
Totally, pretty much. As I mentioned before, the Fiat was the animation director's car. and the Citroen was Miyazaki's car. So
Car,
they're very
yeah.
much playing around with that. And then we get this absurd scene, this ridiculously wonderful car chase. Probably one of the most iconic car chases in anime, as they are going after him in this ridiculously souped up Fiat. And we do get this idea.
I love they pop the back
Yeah.
of it.
They pop the
It's
back,
like,
and they
I'm like,
pull
is
the-
that like a super blower or something? What the hell's going on with that? I'm like, what is this?
They do have to outrun
But I like
police
how
in a
it-
Fiat.
But I like the mechanics of that, where
Mhm.
there's just like, okay, we got to do this, and there's that one little 2-second scene where he grabs the handle, and
Mhm.
chunks it a couple times, and then the back opens up, and you see the magic door that makes the car go 80 miles an hour through thick bushes,
There it
and
is. Mm-hmm.
Wall climbing. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll climb,
Exactly.
going up.
Mm-hmm.
Up the side of the cliff, going through bushes, getting smacked in the head with a. What was that? A canary?
Yeah, something like that. Yes. Love that
Canary
sequence.
smacked him in the head.
Yep.
Driving through the thicket.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a canary. It looks like one. It's
And
a
again-
yellow bird at least.
Establishing that we can be kind of absurd here, but we are also in a clear world with consequences. It's not Tom and Jerry, right?
Right.
The vehicles do get beat up over the course of this thing quite a bit.
The fact that the Fiat actually makes it the entire
Mhm.
way, and
Yep.
you just gotta go. Where's the English mechanic for that car?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it should not have survived.
No.
I have to wonder what the animation staff was, because it's so well done.
Yeah.
Like, how much time must this have taken to crank through to
Mhm.
get this frenetic, hectic chase scene animated so nicely?
And this
You
is
know,
one
I
of
was
the
like, oh,
This is one of the things we were pointing out before, is that a lot of the animation in this movie is very effective, but it's not flashy, right? It's not like there are a few shots of people like leaping at you and so forth, but it's not like a Naruto sequence or things like that where there's all this
Right.
stuff going on. And so there's a lot accomplished through this. Okay, we're just going to make sure that we nail the movement of the cars, and then we're going to sort of spend a
and
lot of
they
time
did.
in this. Yeah, exactly, totally. And so then we get the initial rescue of Clarice, and there is I do like the fact that we don't know whether she's deliberately giving him the ring or not. That it's just there, and she manages to rescue him. And again, we get the idea that okay, Lupin can take a lot of damage.
yeah,
Tree branch to the head,
Mhm.
yeah.
foot fall onto rock. But totally missed the water. I mean, it could
Yeah,
be
exactly.
possible if he hit the water, but
It's the shore.
Mhm. Yeah.
instead, and then hits the
Mhm.
cranium.
Yep.
Well, I love his reflexes too, where it's like
Yeah.
his wire. He just throws the wire,
Yeah.
like diving off of a cliff,
Mhm.
throws and has the wherewithal to be like, grab the girl, throw the wire, and let's slowly go. Whoops,
Yep. Mhm.
With that tiny little winch.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a little tiny crank. I'm like, what is
Yep. There he
like a
goes.
monofilament, like super tensile strength
Yeah.
wire. I'm like, what is this crank thing you're doing here, buddy?
It's James Bond. We can.
Yeah, oh
we can
yeah.
do that.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Where's Q?
Exactly.
Right.
And then we get this lovely thing. And again, this is one of those things where I think Miyazaki is very wise in letting us spend our time not only in this sequence and sort of letting Lupin be quiet and letting the scene play out. Steve, as you mentioned, very Miyazaki thing, but also, and this is something that I didn't realize until watching it. This is all stuff from the ending. This is all imagery you will see again. This is where they come out at the end.
Oh,
Right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the clock tower in the distance. You hear the clock tower ring during this scene. The bong, bong. So he's setting up all of these things so that later on when they happen again, you're like, oh, here's where I am. Like, all of these things can come back together, which is very clever. And then you get, again, playing out the very Heidi scenes of, oh, we're definitely in Europe. And then we start understanding what's going on here. And one thing that's also interesting about this is you get all these things, and you're very quickly. Well, there's the autogyro, which is wonderfully absurd. I mean, it exists. It's a it is a type of vehicle, but it's one of those. Okay, it's anime. Like we can just throw that in our anime, right? Like why not?
Right.
Let's just have that be a thing.
Yeah, no autogyro I've ever seen look anything like
No.
that. Like,
Yep, very Miyazaki.
oh yeah.
And then we get to meet the Count de Cagliostro. What a charming man.
Yeah.
But you don't even see him, and you know how not charming he is when the guy. He's got actual like footsteps to get out of the gyrocopter. Instead, the servant leans his back over, and the Count just goes, "Yep." So steps on him as he climbs down, and the whole wonderful scene as they're moving through the castle. And Mondo is that the
I think so, yeah.
the servant's name? Something like
The
that.
evil servant guy.
As they're going, as they're walking through the castle, he's like disrobing the flight suit and the helmet, and as they're walking and talking, and it's just like this movement, and the Count just walks through, and he just has that wonderful smirk that you just want to go, oh, I want to punch you in the throat so bad.
An impressively punchable villain.
Yep.
And then you get this character. Okay, so Fujiko. I mean, it's Fujiko. Again, I think for all of us watching this movie the first time, we're like, oh, a character. I now realize watching it how many people watching the movie went, oh, Fujiko's there. Cool. Right? Like, if you've seen this character at all, you'd know who that was. But again, I love the fact that we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to make a big deal out of it. We're just going to have the character there, and who recognizes it can yell in the theater. Otherwise, we'll move on to the storyline. And then we get that face, man. And then the let's be honest, very creepy scene of him leering over her unconscious body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's been sedated to help keep her calm.
Right.
Like, oh,
yeah,
creepy.
It's rather. But then again, it kind of establishes.
You understand that he's. You understand that there's a power play here, but then there's that point where it's just like the ugly comes out, and it's just like
exactly.
And he just kind of looks at her, saying he's holding her hand, and you're just like going, I'm so skeeved. I'm so skeeved out right now.
Well, the thing that struck
like
me about his face, especially that image you grabbed there, in Spirited Away, some of the sort of little toad-looking froggy guys that are part of the bathhouse, that's the face. Where it's just like,
true.
Wow, you nailed that early, and then you worked with it later on. Good job.
Absolutely. So yes, that moves right along, and then we get the scene, and again. Great moment from the dub that we were watching on this one, where Lupin is in the restaurant, and he's looking at the ring, and Jigen goes, and he goes like it's Catalan, some dead language, and Jigen goes, "Can you read it?" And Lupin goes, "Of course," and then starts reading. Like he's insulted,
One of the many dead languages I'm a master of, so why wouldn't I be?
Oh, yeah, come on. I know. I love that how like some plot points you just go, you know what? It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Let's just move on. Exactly. Lupin, of course, Lupin knows. Of course, he knows. Because how else are we going to explain this? I just know.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
I was also really impressed rewatching this sequence of the spy in the background. The Count's man, who is always there in the scene. The camera is always sure to include him in various shots, so that by the time things are going on, you realize, oh wait, he's paying attention. And again, a great line where Lupin says something along the lines of, "Oh, it explains why there are so many sightseers around here." You're like, he knows what's going on. And then he flirts with the waitress, establishing he's sort of a ladies' man. And
I love her reaction to his come on.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
You. Oh you.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, whatever. I get this all the time.
I was gonna say all day, every day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, although she's a very
Well,
heightened character,
please.
isn't she? She's a very like world masterpiece theater, I think, background character. But yeah, very, very innocent. And then we get Lupin and Jigen making bullets.
Yeah, which is it's interesting. Why
Yeah.
were they making bullets?
I
You know what I
don't
mean? It's
know.
like, are you making high tests? So you're making your own packing powder, so it's a
Mm-hmm.
more powerful round. That could be.
And Jigen
Oh,
pointed
and-
out that he had those,
in
armor
the
piercing rounds. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say that in the manga, they do make a big Monkey Punch makes a big deal that Lupin and Jigen in particular with firearms, Lupin in just a general sense, is a master of putting contraptions together.
Okay.
And so he does. So they do a lot of their own things because it's. I think it's a transfer from the manga to this, which is the idea that Lupin and his cohort are so good at what they do that they apply their skills to what is needed for the job at hand. So so it's just like how Goemon comes in and how Zenigata comes in later on, and you realize that he's planned for these contingencies. I mean, the thing that he's making actually is the flash bomb. They know they're about to be attacked, so they're just like, okay, well, we kind of know that they're pretty well armed, so we're just gonna put these things together, and here you go.
Yep. I think
And
you're
if
absolutely
you don't watch that scene very carefully, you'll miss the point that when Lupin picks up that there's somebody outside the window
Yeah.
door.
Yep. And then they come, and this is a really interesting fight scene because they don't grab their guns, right?
Sure.
They pick certainly deadly weapons, but things that aren't going to cause noise.
Yeah.
And which I think is very clever. And then you get this sequence which very effectively establishes, okay, what are we dealing with here? And you have these things, and I love the fact that these assassins come in, and both Lupin and Jigen are outmatched. Like they can hold their own, but they're not going to last very long. And so what do? It doesn't become an Arnold Schwarzenegger fight, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to work. So they do the flash bomb and run away. Again, very thing. And I love this sequence of Lupin driving along and Jigen just going bam, 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 bam over and over on the head of the guy, just to try to get away. Because again, this is not about a fight. This is they're thieves. They need to get away.
Yeah, they're not put together with body armor and other things where they can slog it out 1-to-1 with guys that for some particular reason look like gargoyles. It's like a really weird kind of outfit and everybody's hunched over.
Yeah.
They're all like
over.
walking like
And-
weird. It's like, is this just purely the intimidation factor, or what was going on with that?
Yeah. There's probably some like European legend or something that they're sort of, or some story of some group of assassins or something that they're pulling from for this.
Yeah, so it must be something because
Must be
I'm looking at the gauntlets and
Yeah.
stuff with the
Claws.
knife hand claws things.
Yep.
It's like, okay,
Yeah.
weird,
Very interesting.
inventive, very inventive.
Exactly. A lot of this movie. Then we get a little bit of back and forth with Cagliostro realizing that Lupin is here. And then suddenly it becomes a samurai movie. Suddenly we get rain and this cart going through the rain, and Goemon shows up. Who again? It's very, if you haven't seen Lupin the there, you're like, what the hell? But for fans, it would make a lot of sense. And you get this fun sequence of Goemon showing up. Fun fact: Miyazaki wanted this to be a movie that was just Lupin and Jigen. He did not want Goemon or Fujiko in the movie, but the folks essentially running it said no. Those are, it's a Lupin story, and those characters have to be in it because they're fundamental to it. So we kind of grudgingly wove them into the story. But you'll notice you don't really need either of them for the plot to move forward, right? Like they're just kind of
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And then you discover that Lupin has invited Zenigata to come. And this is one of those things that, again, I missed first time
I love
around.
Zenigata.
Oh, Zenigata's great.
Yeah.
I love Zenigata.
He's
I
very
love him.
dedicated to his duty as a police officer.
Prototypical Japanese worker,
He's
Lupin calls him.
But it's a brilliant line where Jigen, it was a Jigen who says, "We're going to need a tank to get in there." Well, that's why Zenigata's here.
Exactly. And yeah, that was the thing that I did not grasp the first time through, because I had no idea, of course, who the character was. But it is brilliant that you bring in this sort of wild card character to confuse your enemy and just keep him busy with all the craziness there while you're trying to infiltrate. It's what a Master Thief would do.
But I
And-
also like that Interpol, apparently the local branch is a Japanese officer and then a bunch of Japanese police guys.
Yeah.
Like, wow, Interpol apparently is entirely Japanese.
Yes. We'll get to Interpol later. Interpol's hilarious. And we establish, and again, I appreciate the fact that Zenigata can very easily just be played the fool. As just this random dumb police officer. I mean, not random, obviously, he's a central character.
Right.
But just he's this idiot. But as soon as he comes in and sees the lasers and all the other stuff, he's like, something's wrong. This something way beyond Lupin is going on here. Which is clever. And then the anti-tank thing.
I still laugh at that scene towards the end when he, goes in with the camera crew. We'll get to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I still laugh when he does.
Look at this.
Who would have known?
And then Lupin and Jigen try to get into the castle, and I love this because the people watching this
Sequence.
in theaters must have been going, "We're 30 minutes in. This is the climax, right? Like they're doing the thing. What's gonna happen here?" They don't build up to it. And like you said, it's a great scene. Very little music. Played very straight as they're going in, discovering all the defenses, the lasers. That great scene of they see the
Swim
waterfall.
upstream.
Yeah,
Swim upstream. Swim upstream.
And he makes it, and then he starts going back. He's like, well, and this is the thing, you do what you can. And then you get this wonderful sequence. And again, I think this is Miyazaki kind of playing around with animation when Lupin is in the fountain. And
I've never seen a fountain that I could fit in.
Yeah,
but
no,
exactly, yeah.
A human size fountain. Like,
but it is such an interesting perspective to watch.
Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that Zenigata puts his head in, and you get this sort of weird, very funny thing. Clearly there to make you laugh, and it worked. And just a fun little moment in that tension. And again, I think it's great that you have all this, obviously Lupin's surviving, but now he's, Zenigata's right there, he's going to get caught, and then a little moment of humor for Lupin to come out. And then the deception. Where Zenigata...
That was fantastic. That's him!
You idiots!
I was dying when that happened.
It's great stuff. It's also interesting how animation-wise, as soon as that happens, they put Lupin's face very clearly on Zenigata's on Lupin's body. They don't try to hide the fact of who it is, so you can kind of follow it, which is I think one of those things that just kind of makes the movie a little clearer in the audience. And he's able to run. Zenigata gets captured, of course, and then we get the reveal of Fujiko as Lupin finds her. And again, like you were saying, even if you don't know who those characters are, the way they relate in that scene very clearly communicates they have a history, they know who they are, without going into any great detail. And again, they know each other, and yet Lupin manages to slip away from Fujiko without her knowing.
Yep.
It's brilliant. And then how the hell is Lupin going to get across to Clarice's tower?
This is one of my favorite parts of the movie. This is just so action, movement, everything, and it's just.
And
It's what you want animation to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was expecting a hang glider. I mean,
Yeah,
I literally
sure.
was expecting him to just like pull out of his jacket and be like, "Thunk! There's a hang glider."
And
like,
let me tell you, folks, if you ever have the misfortune of trying to play Cliffhanger on the arcade style game, you have to hit that button right at the right second for each of the times that he falls off.
Yikes.
I don't know how many dollars I put into that damn machine just to get to the point where I slid off the turret when he finally gets onto the other side.
And I love the fact that, again, in a Hollywood movie, you would have had a scene where he's planning this out. And he explains to the audience, here's what I'm going to do. No. You just watch Lupin do everything, and you have to intuit from his actions. Oh, he has a rocket. That's going to launch the wire across. He's going to use the wire to go across. And that doesn't quite work. Again, I love...
No.
But it doesn't work, so it's this wonderful, chaotic scene. You're just like,
whoops! I'm like, oh, really?
And he's going down, right? And he's like moving, and you're like, no.
It's gonna get worse.
No. And then he starts leaning into the run, and you're like going,
yeah, exactly.
And he totally takes that leap, and you're just like going, do you have any idea where you're going? I mean, you close your eyes and go, please God help.
Yep. And he makes the leap.
He makes a leap.
Oh,
yeah. Man, does he leap.
And I just love his expression at the end of that, where he's like, no, that was not how that was supposed to go. Why am I still alive?
Well, I love the splat when he makes contact. You not only do you get the sort of release from the scene as a viewer, but you also you sort of intuit from his that you're like, he must be relieved too, and he's got that look on his face where he's like, I did that, and then you what now what? It's like, that's awesome.
Exactly. It very much humanizes his character in this very sort of ridiculous scenario, and then he makes it up, and now you actually get some time with Clarice, and this is really our first scene with Clarice, and it's fascinating because when he shows up, you're still not sure what Lupin's game is, what he's after, and you realize throughout the scene that really Lupin is here because he's paying her back. He feels bad for her, and he's trying to he's romancing her in a very sweet way.
Right.
And it's this lovely moment because, again, it plays out. We're not told.
Yeah. Did any of you guys, after seeing the room the awesome room that she was in, mind you, with the sky and the all that stuff, were any of you reminded of Akira?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very much, because I was trying to figure out, like, did anything in this room
gonna fall down
or something? Yeah, like something happened in this room.
Mm-hmm. Also, Spirited Away, the Big Baby's room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's a little bit of that as well. Yep. But yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because besides everything else, if you're watching the movie again, you realize Lupin is also probing Clarice to figure out how confident she is. Like, how much has she given up? Because if he tries to escape with her, he needs to know how much he can rely on her.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that kind of back and forth as he's talking to her. He has lovely, sweet little the flower with the little flags coming down.
With the flower part, I was like, "Oh, that's really sweet." And then he starts popping the flags out like a magician, and I'm like, "Now it just went from sweet to goofy."
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it really does. She's not only touched by the flower, and
Mhm.
you see her kind of mood lifting, but then, like all of us in the audience, she's amused,
Yeah,
delighted by the sort of novelty of what he's doing. And it's like,
exactly.
"Oh, this
And,
is neat."
and I think that was exactly the point. Is the flower, in and of itself, would be sort of smarmy. It would be cute, to be romantic, but the flags just add a little bit of a touch of whimsy to it, which brings a smile to her face for the first time. And then the Count shows up, and man, this standoff. Lupin does not give an inch. And he is absolutely just standing off with his Count, despite not knowing. Right? Lupin really doesn't know what the Count has up his sleeve, but he's absolutely just, nope, I'm going to be completely self-confident.
And he does not give anybody the satisfaction when the trapdoor drops.
Nope.
He goes all the way down.
Yeah, he's just cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did not intend on winding up there.
No.
Yeah.
And
I don't think anybody wanted to intend.
And that's the interesting
there.
part too, is you think about the means to getting to the tower.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any information that Lupin has figured out that there's an alternative way.
Right.
He's just run across a roof and jumped across all this area. It's like if there had been an alternate set of stairs that he knew of at that time, you'd figure he probably would have taken the least problematic route.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know how he's supposed to get down.
Yeah.
So he's in there and he's supremely confident, and it's like, how are you going to get out of here?
Yeah.
Your confidence is in that you know how to handle these people and the situation, but you don't have that next step to it. You don't have the exit to it necessarily.
Nope.
And it's just like that. If he had known the trapdoor was there, it's like, that would, I would think if he knew it was there, that would be like, that might be the way out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you never know. I mean, that's one of the wonderful things is you have no background to it to know what does he know?
Mm-hmm.
What doesn't he know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got a pair on to stand there with all those fingers pointing at it.
And
how creepy would that be if you just had a whole bunch of goons just going, "Hey,
yeah,
hey."
Yeah, not really saying anything, just all standing there quiet with fingers pointing at you, like, okay.
I also like from a plot perspective.
Hello, welcome to the Proctology Convention.
Not good. We have, and this movie does a lot of highs and lows, and it does an amazing job at that. And so I love how Lupin drops down, and by this point we know, okay, he's probably fine. He's
Right.
something's going on there. But then you have the whole scene with Clarice and the Count, and where he suddenly turns just, the creep factor goes to 11, and he's like just ick. So it's this very low point for the Clarice and everything, and he has the ring, and so we get the twist of no, he doesn't. Lupin's given this fake ring, which also tells you that now Lupin knows what Cagliostro has just said in this entire scene. So it's a beautiful informational thing, and it gives Clarice a bit of a relief, which is lovely.
When the Count says Clarice's name, do you get the Hannibal Lecter vibe?
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say earlier. Like,
Clarice.
hello, Clarice.
Clarice.
Well, I also, Steve, you were talking about Lupin's gadgetry kind of stuff. It's like, it's amazing that he poured a ring and did stuff that we never saw how he did what he did with that ring, but he somehow produced a nearly perfect copy of it in what apparently was 30 minutes.
He carved it out and
poured metal into it and all. I was like,
that also contained a transmitter. Exactly, which also contained a microphone, transmitter, and an explosive device and confetti in 1979.
Yep.
Pretty impressive.
And it wasn't the size of like a toast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kudos to you, man. Kudos to you.
And so Clarice is left with that, and so yeah, and again we get Lupin going through here, and it's interesting because this very much feels like one of those scenes where it's like, okay, Lupin has to be pushed out, so we're going to put him in the dungeons, some environment. But I love that they use this as a chance to add more backstory, to give okay, all these people have been looking for this, the stakes are higher, and they've all come down here and died. Even the guy with the crown on his head, like obviously political prisoners, who died. And then we get this interesting scene with this this inscription by a Japanese soldier. And Steve, you were saying you were looking this up a bit?
Yeah, I tried looking it up because I felt like it was like it had to have been somebody. So I was trying to look them up, and the name does exist, but it's not a Japanese soldier or spy. But there's a guy in Japan whose last name is the same as the soldier in there, and he's considered to be the last ninja in Japan.
Okay.
And there's another person who is not connected to this movie whatsoever in any plausible way because he was born the year this movie was made.
Probably not.
And but he has a movie coming out in November. He's a filmmaker.
Cool.
But it's kind of interesting because it does give the backstory of like how widespread this money ring is and how long it's been going on for, and it tries to establish for a Japanese audience, this is important. It affects us as well. So it kind of adds a different element to like how big this conspiracy is, and even Zenigata. When he points it out to Zenigata is just like, they give a moment of reverence. And as they're doing that, I don't know if you saw up in the upper left-hand corner, but there was a corpse up there with head, skull, and hair with a transistor radio. Yeah. And also the fact that the soldier shot himself in the head. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah,
and he had the old revolver.
Yep.
It was a bleak moment in the movie.
It was
very bleak.
Surprisingly very bleak moment. And again, I think it was good because it, in this, it highs and lows. Lupin has gotten it over on the count, and then all of a sudden he is in a much darker situation than he, he thought he was.
Well, I anticipated.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, Zenigata shows up, and we have this moment of Lupin being very confident. He's like, "What are you gonna do? Like, gonna arrest me down here?" And then we get flashback, and again, one of those little moments in animation that I love when the frogmen come in. And it's a very quiet scene. They put their hands on the stone, and we see the water seep along the stone. There's a little moment of, this is like, that realism just adds a lot. And it's a little, I think it's also important because it is a very slow scene, and it gives you something to look at and think about while they're looking at Lupin to establish, okay, this is a moment that we have to, everyone would be careful in. So the audience doesn't get bored just watching these frogmen just kind of stare. And of course, Lupin and Jigen get the drop on them, and I love how they overpower the frogmen. One of them jumps away. Lupin immediately dives in. Zenigata is still trying to process it. Yeah, and Lupin's just off.
And he's off with no preparation. It's just all pure adrenaline. There's no iron, there's no scuba equipment. There's no swim fins. There's jack. And it's like, wow, good luck trying to catch up with a guy who's ready for underwater swimming.
Exactly.
And as they're going through the tunnel and swimming through there, I was reminded of the Venture Brothers scenes when the henchmen decline doing that because they're just like, Did you ever see the Tomb Raider? How she died when she drowned? That was grisly. And I was just reminded of that scene when he's going through there. But you know what is interesting in that particular scene is what is unsaid at the end of it when the last frogman is literally trying to get up and Luhan grabs him.
Mm-hmm.
You see the shorts come out as a comedic moment, but you laugh at that, but you only think later on, go, oh, wait a minute, that dude's dead.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Lupin killed him and apparently took his underwear off, but that's unimportant.
Yeah, it is interesting how they're establishing things. And then, of course, they fly back. Also, I love the fact that the first time we see the frogmen, we see a head pop out of the water. And then when we're going back to Jogo, or whatever his name is, what we see is a head pop out of the water and the thing with the ring, which is just enough for the audience to go, uh-oh, it's an actual frogman, before they jump out.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we get to the discovery of the printing presses, which nicely...
Oh, wait.
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of is it Monoke, where the character has the weird skull helmet movie? I'm blanking. There's a character who dresses up, who's supposed to be a warrior in one of the Miyazaki movies, and he has this, like, the giant wolf. God damn it, I can't pull it out of my head. But there's a scene where they fight the frogman. Lupin's wearing a skull cap, with the hair on top of it. Darn it! I wish I could remember what the movie.
Let's just watch Steve have a meltdown. Go for it.
Someday I'll figure it out. But anyway, I thought there was a connection there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, would not surprise me at all. And then we get the rescue, and I love Fujiko here, who comes in, just strips off the costume, starts assembling guns and pulling out grenades and just launching things, just very, very blasé. I love how, like, the door opens and she immediately just opens fire with a submachine gun, throws a grenade, keeps on firing. It's like, she's used to this. She knows exactly what to do.
Well, how was she wearing that outfit underneath that, like, 19th century wasp-waisted dress? I'm just like, wow, you are the mistress of disguise.
Exactly, yes. And so, yeah, you get all these sequences. Also, I would swear Fujiko is animated by Miyazaki in this scene. Just because of her facial structure is just very Miyazaki. I don't know. But, and then the brilliance, what does Lupin do? What's his next move? It's not to escape. It's to burn all the money to create chaos. It's brilliant. And so he does that. He gets up. And very upbeat music. Again. It's the climax. We're an hour in. Climax number 2. And they steal the auto gyro, and it's this great scene.
Which, of course, everybody automatically knows how to fly it
exactly,
over. Which I just love. Which, I'm sitting there watching, I'm like, okay, how the police detective takes over and, like, nearly crashes it, but he still manages to keep it kind of in the air. Mm-hmm. I can kind of believe that Lupin knows how to do an auto gyro. I'm like, just let it go. Just let it go and enjoy what's happening. Enjoy the physicality of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Little silly. And so Lupin, again, I love the dub. He opens the door. Anyone call for a cab? He gets Clarice out. He goes running, and we have this amazing shot of Lupin running up the side of the roof, triumphant, just trying to get that thing, and then A, he gets shot.
Yeah.
B, the autogyro gets shot behind him. And just the movie completely turns. And
Which when he got shot and I saw the debris coming out, I thought,
oh, that's the thing.
he didn't get wings. That's like his spine and his sternum all leaving. I'm like, oh.
And if you're like a first-time watcher of this, you're just like, but wasn't there like a whole franchise of this guy? He's dead now.
Just murdered him right here?
Yeah.
And God has blown the kingdom come, and yeah.
It's brilliant. And again, music stops. Lupin falls down. Clarice has to save him.
Yeah.
She literally, slows him down. And, machine guns come out of nowhere. And it's, okay, stakes are high. Because he is bleeding out. There's no question.
Yeah.
And then what I love about this scene is that Lupin cannot act. It's no longer Lupin's scene. It's all about Clarice. What is she going to do? And now that we know enough about her, we're like,
Yeah.
yeah. And she
Well, I
doesn't.
like that they hired 2 stormtroopers from Star Wars to man the machine guns because they couldn't hit the blind side of a barn.
Mhm.
And they're only like 10, 15 feet away from them, and they're just opening up, and it's everywhere. Clarice doesn't get hit again.
Well, and
like
that's
Lupin doesn't get hit again. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's I believe that's deliberate because I believe the Count is trusting Drogo to scare her. Because he's publicly announced this wedding.
right.
He's not going to order her shot. Although I do love again in the dub, Drogo goes, should I shoot her? Wait until I have the ring.
That was almost fourth wall. That was almost fourth
Exactly.
wall.
Yeah.
For me. Wait till I get.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if the schlep that the Duke is that he wouldn't have gotten the ring and then shot her anyway and been like, oh, Lupin the thief,
True.
violent thief, murdered her. Oh, now I am bereft of my dearest love. And I'm just gonna rule the country. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and he's clearly, up for that later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what was up with the? One of the things I noticed early on was that there were, kind of like with the steamship that the goons were on at the very beginning of the movie was very 1930s, 1940s. Later on, we see Tommy guns, but in this particular scene, Drogo or Armando, whatever his name is firing what looks to be
an MG-34.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out what
Okay.
it was, and that looked like exactly what it was. Okay, I wasn't imagining it, but it just seemed like kind of weird that even though this movie was made to be in 1979, here you have this country that has this like really outdated, well, not necessarily outdated, but just weaponry from the past. That's what they use.
Lasers.
Have lasers, right?
Yeah.
That was the fun part about all of it. It's just like, lasers, really, and like not just kind of some kind of wacky, city-sized thing to make a tiny laser. No, stuff where even walking across the lawn gets a little, it's like, ow. Okay. The clock tower, mechanics room. They're all on like little independent movement stuff and looking around. I'm like, this is really
Movement
weird.
sensors. Yeah, it's odd. And again, you got to get the sense of Miyazaki's very eclectic taste.
Yeah.
Of that looks cool. We'll throw that in there. So they get out. And then the scene with Interpol.
No faith.
No.
You just get a feeling that a lot of people are on the goat payroll system.
Exactly. There's a great line in the dub, and I don't know how accurate it is, but when everyone's yelling, where somebody goes, "Gentlemen, this is not a place to air our nation's grievances."
Yeah, it's like
neither the time nor the place.
It is.
Exactly. exactly the point. And again, this goes back to something we talked about before: is anime's kind of distrust of big bureaucratic governments. That this is just something you see over and over again. Is that just the government can't really make a decision, and everyone's corrupt, so you do what you can.
But it's great how they play Zenigata in that scene.
Yeah.
And you realize that Zenigata is, throughout up to this point, even when he makes his pact with Lupin to get out of there, you realize at this point that, hey, he's a good guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's half the Lupin that we all like and love, whatever. But he's a good guy. He's a cop. He's a good guy, and this is what he wants to do. And he is thoroughly annoyed. I mean, if this were like a live action movie, he'd be dropping F-bombs
exactly
throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But instead, he goes back and he gives the order to his troops, or his men, and he says, "Prepare to leave," and then he just goes and slams the door. Yeah. In true cop fashion, drinks, eats peanuts, and smokes a lot, and somehow answers the phone with his foot.
Yeah.
But still, you realize that Zenigata really is a good guy.
Absolutely,
he's one of the good guys.
Watching this scene, I felt like I could totally watch a version of this movie where Zenigata is the hero.
Yeah.
And he's just always gets the short end of the stick. Poor guy. And then we get again this sort of long scene of that just plays out where we finally get the backstory, and we finally understand why Lupin is not chasing after Clarice, why he's not chasing Skirt, because Clarice, he met Clarice when she was a little girl, and she basically saved his life, and so that's how he sees her. And again, I love the fact that you can tell Miyazaki is thinking, I don't want Lupin to be the ladies' man in this movie. I want there to be a cute girl in it because, anime. How do I do those things? How do I connect that with Lupin? I make her a little girl in his mind, and then he's like, no, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And then he, and we get everything. By the way, that whole sequence, when he's remembering what he was like when he was young, those are all mostly reanimated shots from the original Lupin the Third pilot TV episode.
Really?
Yeah, they made like a 5-10 minute test reel, and it shows Lupin driving this car and doing all these things, and so this is kind of a throwback to those sequences.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is fun. And then again, Clarice is a little girl. And again, I love connections. We see the house before it burned down. We see all these places again. It's gorgeous. And then we get Zenigata again, figuring everything out. And now we're actually building up to our climax.
Part 3.
Part 3, yes. Climax part 3. And this is where the pacing of the movie gets, I think, a lot more interesting because there's so many different things going on. You get the Pontiff showing up, which again sort of just plays out of just here's this character. Why are we seeing this? Why do we care?
Yeah.
And then the broadcasters come up and you see Fujiko there. And you're like, oh,
something's happening.
What's going on? And then we get the Black Ku Klux Klan.
The satanic Ku Klux Klan.
Klux Klan.
Yeah, a representative of the Vatican shows up, and you've got your witch cult. Weird, odd.
But very gothic, very very evocative. I think this is one of those movies where we're at a point where we're like, okay, what can we do now? What direction can we go to make this visually interesting, and boy, they do it. You will not soon forget the shots of all of those folks, going through the catacombs with the shadows on the walls and all that stuff. It's very evocative.
And all the giant swords.
Yep.
Yeah. Like,
if you've seen Nadia in Secret of Blue Water,
Yep.
they very much use this imagery. We see poor Clarice all drugged up, going through the motions. And the wedding, which again, they just play out. We just get to watch it. And I love the fact that Miyazaki says, there's more to this. There's more going on. So by just playing out the scene, you're wondering what's going to happen. When's Lupin going to show up? Who, is Jigen going to start blasting people? How is this going to work? Which then leads to this, again, very chaotic scene with the fake Lupin and Fujiko filming all of it. And you're like, why is... Zenigata gets pulled in. And so, I do want to talk about, I found this slightly cruel. It seems to me, Lupin felt that the best way to shake Clarice out of her drug-addled state was to watch him be murdered.
Yeah.
Which is clearly very traumatic and enough to shake her out of the drugs.
Yeah.
Like,
Which, I mean, technically, and this is one of those interesting things that's, it's anime, not reality. Because if you were sauced out that bad, you could have had a nuclear bomb go off next to her, and she never would have woken up. You'd have been like,
no, right.
So that was an interesting concept in shows and anime.
Yeah. It's movie drugging, not real drugging.
Yeah.
And then of course Lupin shows up, and you get this very this again just more confusion and more what the hell is going on, because suddenly Zenigata, rushes towards the altar, and again great moment where Fujiko goes, "Oh look, he's running to the altar!" Bang! Let's go, literally like shoots a guy in the chest.
She's like doing a play-by-play, and they attack her, and she's just like, wrench, gun to the face, kick. The poor cameraman is just like, I will get the shot.
Yeah, he's like the hero of the camera team there. He just keeps going. I'm gonna die, but I'll keep filming.
Yeah, exactly. Anything for the shot.
And then we get to see Zenigata's wonderful Oscar award-winning acting.
Again,
I'm after Lupin. Look at all this. I see a press. I see counterfeit money. I was here for Lupin. It just goes on, and that's why the camera crew's there.
Yep.
So meanwhile, at Interpol, they're all going, "Oh God,
Lord, he's a bad actor."
Yeah.
And they know. Which then leads to, so Clarice is now actually rescued. We get a lovely touching moment between her and Jigen and Goemon, thanking them. And again, I love this because it establishes more of her character, and it gives kind of Jigen and Goemon a little bit of a satisfaction out of all this, where they're basically along for the ride so that Lupin can go off with the girl. Come on. But having that thanks, clearly they appreciate that. Then again, Goemon drops down, sudden samurai movie. And what's the line? You are not worthy of my blade.
Yeah,
you're not worthy of my blade.
What? Moving on to climax number 4. And the discovery of the clock tower. Now, the clock tower scene is very famous in animation circles and movie circles in general. If you've seen The Great Mouse Detective, that scene is a pulling off of this. There's a Batman the Animated Series episode that's very much pulled off of this.
Running through the clock gears.
Yep. Very famous. Partly because this is hard to animate.
Oh yeah.
You got all of these
just
things.
a little.
Yeah, exactly. You know?
Literal moving parts.
Yeah, and it's all got to look right and make sense while characters are interweaving with them. My gosh. So it's an animation tour de force in a lot of ways. And I also love that they establish the dangers of it by killing a man.
Yeah. Don't look.
Yeah.
Because at the very beginning of the sequence, they all go up onto those like as if it's natural, and they know what gear to jump on and all that, and then suddenly you see the guy scream, and he's just like, "Don't look!" and pushes her head to his shoulder, and you know, in normal anime, we would get to see the limbs splay out a little bit, blood or whatever.
And one thing I noticed, let's see if I can see it in a moment. Like the prior guy falls down because he's being hit by like the boot and the hat and the gun of the guy. So he's in pieces.
Right.
It's very clear what happened.
And so that at the end of it, when the guys are just like going, "No, sir, we can't get through the gears," the Count just goes, "Use the stairs."
Love that.
Fine, smarty pants. Point out the obvious. Where's the drama in that?
Hey, Bob got crushed. Why did you let us know then?
And then the famous fight on the gears, where they're going back and forth, and I just, my goodness, and the fact that it's, you know, sword versus giant wrench. It's somebody who is, they're both improvising, but the difference is just very clear in terms of improv and so forth. It's an amazing scene. And then the Count goes after Clarice, and suddenly we get another shift in tone. Suddenly it's the Count sort of ascendant with Clarice out on the clock tower, and I love how suddenly Lupin is kind of scared. How when the Count has Clarice at the end of the clock hand, Lupin comes out and goes, "No, just a minute, hold on, let's talk." You know, because he knows how dangerous the Count is. And that absolutely is a thing. Which leads to this, I'm sorry, people are going to yell at me, very 1930s treasure hunter, climactic thing where you put the rings into the eyes of the statue and then, you know, the gears shift and so forth. And it's very wonderfully silly in the sense of just why would you do this? Why would this be something you would build? But it's very fun, right? It's a fun big climactic thing. And a standoff, no music, just them.
No music, just a squish at the end.
Just a squish at the end. Oh man! And again, you know, getting back to what we were saying, you know, Lupin is not here to win. Lupin is here to get the girl and get out of there.
Yeah.
And once he achieves that, he's fine. Like, just go. And you get that wonderful poetic justice.
And that is an interesting thing because there really doesn't occur anywhere in this a point in time where you have some dialogue or some monologue from Lupin saying, the Count is bad, and the Count has to go. He's a terrible person. We should expose him and dethrone him. And no, the counterfeiting thing is like a separate sort of thing from that. He doesn't have anything to do with the Count, really, at all. It's get the girl, get out, and go on. So almost, if it weren't for the exposure of the counterfeiting, if he could get Clarice out of there, Duke could go on doing his thing. It's like it really wouldn't make any difference. Like, ooh, interesting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's one of the interesting things about having a story about a gentleman thief, about, you know, a ne'er-do-well where, you know, he constantly has to leave bad people in power, right? Like, that's not his job.
Right.
And I think it'd be very easy
He's
to
a thief, not a hero.
Exactly.
Not a superhero.
Yeah. It'd be very easy to turn this into a movie where he does that, where he decides, no, the Count has to go. But it's not in character. And again, just rarely have I felt as satisfied when I heard that scream of Cagliostro getting crushed to death. And again, I appreciate Miyazaki. Miyazaki pulls way back. You don't see it, we just hear it.
Yeah. You see is all you see is like right before he pulls away, it's just like the count going.
Yep.
Squish.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's
Squish and
yeah, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then we get again this ending. No music. Very quiet. Very
no good real reason to have built this enormous doohickey thing with the rings and all this stuff for what happens. I'm like, okay,
sure. This is totally something the Romans did. But I love the fact that this is almost a showpiece for effects animators, where really there's no character animation; it's just water.
Yeah,
and showing all this beautiful flowing of water and the destruction of everything going on. I love those moments where you just see the waves start to form and just moving up and down, and you realize, oh, this is going to be serious. And you see water flooding scenes from previous in the movie. And this is one of those things where, again, I appreciated it this time of, the castle's sinking. Well, not sinking, but the castle's now going to be flooded. The castle's now going to be useless. And we get, and I do want to point out, we suddenly cut to this very odd shot that's just a single painting of the castle surrounded by water, and I was like, oh, they didn't have time to finish that shot. So they just filmed the painting, and yeah.
Which was still, it was still effective.
It's still lovely.
It got the message across.
Exactly.
It was quite nice to look at.
It totally works. It's just one of the things you're like, oh, connected.
Begging the question of what happened to the little village that was behind the castle that was also getting flooded.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine.
So the population of Cagliostro went from 3,500 to wherever was in the highest part of the castle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the big reveal is that the treasure is this old Roman city, which is now revealed and will be a great tourist attraction, thanks to Lupin III, apparently. Leading to this odd shot.
And it was a treasure that nobody knew about. The Cagliostros didn't even know about it until they're just like, oh, it must be like actual treasure. And through 400 whatever years they said, that however long they were in power, they thought it was this grand treasure, and wouldn't it be nice if we got it together and did it? Why they weren't able to do it for 450 years or whatever, I don't know. But
you have frogmen that can swim up in these dungeons,
right?
But you can't send one dude down with a glass bottom boat to go, hey, look, there's a city down there.
Hey, wait a minute. But so now they're just like, hey, now you don't have to have illegal means with which to make your money. Isn't this wonderful?
Yes, profit off tourism.
And
Tourism isn't it?
That's what Romans do.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's this rather odd shot of all the planes flying over. And I was like, is this a World War II movie? What's going on? But then Interpol, finally got off their fat asses, to quote Lupin. And we get that gorgeous shot of all the parachutes coming down. Slightly reminiscent of Momotaro, but we're not going to talk about that. And and then we get the famous ending. And this is something people talked about for a long time, is that, what does Lupin do? Clarice clearly is giving herself to Lupin. And pushes herself against him. And that wonderful moment where he puts his arms around her, then...
I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
No. Which, again...
She offers up this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she offers himself up to him with a kiss, and he just kisses her forehead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You read what Monkey Punch said he would have had his Lupin do.
Yes. As I recall, it was rather more than that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I like the high ground that he took in this one. This works for me.
But yes, it's interesting because it is a very non-Lupin thing to do. Given the character, if anyone who'd seen it would be like, what? Oh, okay, I kind of guess. But this is and people have said this is kind of the Miyazaki ending, right? This is the way Miyazaki wants to go in this direction. Is him sort of enforcing that in the story. But Zenigata gets the last laugh. Or he gets kind of the final lines. As he comes off and gives his famous line that Lupin has indeed stolen, but he has stolen her heart. Which is sweet, but a little mushy. But again, I think that's kind of the tone of the movie, right? It's a romance. And you're right. And here's the other odd thing. Lupin, I'm still not sure about this. Lupin doesn't want the counterfeits, but as soon as Fujiko comes up with the plates,
yep.
He's reaching for him.
And it's like she's just flirting with him. She comes out and goes, "I know what you want. Yes, I got the plates."
Well, as I say, the bag on the bike is obviously open. You know what I mean? It's like it's not something that you would drive with those plates just sort of rattling around in there. That she would have secured it. So it is nothing but bait to Lupin.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And off he goes to the sound of the music. And it's interesting because I think again in a lot of movies you could have turned this, and this is sort of this self-contained movie, but I love how this does feel like another Lupin adventure. We're not changing anything. We're not, reinventing the wheel here. We're going to tell this little self-contained story, and then the story moves on from here. We go back to the same race
we
had before. And that's the Castle of Cagliostro.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
And it was enjoyable. Thank you.
Indeed.
One of my favorites, all-time favorites.
Yeah. So, having watched this, John, how has your opinion of Lupin been affected by this? Like, do you want to watch more? Do you want to watch less?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'd get to the anime directly, but I think the other Lupin movies, I've now got more of a reason to watch it because I realize it's not part 3, and I've missed part 1 and part 2. So, understanding that now, I'm having now my foot in the water, if you will, to experience Lupin and his ventures. He seems like a really fun character, and a fun character different from, like I said, the Pink Panther, and different from James Bond, but still incorporating the kind of goofiness of Pink Panther and the technical skill and suave debonair of James Bond. So it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
that would definitely welcome watching more Lupin movies. And then, how long is the anime series?
Long.
Like 10 million.
Yeah,
it's not One Piece, but like it'll take you some time. I think like 40 episodes per.
Yeah, I'd probably stick with the movies in the meantime then.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, the TV show is just as episodic as the movies, so it's not like you're losing anything by watching bits and pieces.
Yeah, you can literally drop into any episode and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The caper of the week.
Yep, exactly.
Actually,
you can watch what it was like when they were trying to make adult anime in 1972, I think, when that first came out. Yeah. Whew.
Wow, when they had to write on stone tablets.
Wow. So, quick story. Apparently, Yasuo Otsuka, the animation director, was brought on to the project because he used to go racing in his Fiat 500. I mean, literally, he would climb in his Fiat 500 and race around tracks in it. Because that's not dangerous.
Each your own. All right.
And one day, this guy came up to him and started chatting and said, "What do you do?" I'm an animation. Oh, really? You know, I'm not really. Yeah, I think Japanese animation is really lagging behind. Like, you see these cars out here, like Japanese animators can't draw cars like this in animation, and it was really egging him on. And it turns out that was the president of Takuma Shoten, who was trying to get the Lupin the Third TV series off the ground, knew who Yasuo Otsuka was, and came to sort of goad him and, you know, push him to prove himself and prove how good Japanese animators were at drawing cars, because they didn't. Like, they didn't have these skills. Like, nobody had proven these skills yet. And so Lupin the Third, the TV series, was about showing that they can do a heist story. They can do an adult-oriented, you know, heist story in anime.
Right.
And it took a while for them to figure all those details out, as you can imagine. Some of that animation is kind of rough.
Were the cars prior to that done like Mickey Mouse kind of style, like the big bubbly tires, or like the sort of old jalopy look?
No, it's just that it's more that
Right.
nobody really had any reason to draw cars doing anything. Because you were doing sports anime, you were doing Gigantor. So a car was just a thing that you, you know.
Speed Racer was really the only car anime at the time, and that was about racing cars. So they just and formula cars at that time were easy to draw. They weren't that difficult.
Right.
Whereas if you draw a Citroen, or you know what we see here, where there are definite lines, there are definite you know, angles and things that you have to take into consideration, and aspects of car, like the one that Clarice is driving doesn't have a trunk. Right. It's just a piece of cloth, because that's what that kind of car does. So it didn't really have that. And when you watch the actual anime series, they do pay more attention to vehicles in the series. So it is kind of interesting. I think, but one thing I'll say in general, just I said it before, is that if you're doing, if you watch this for the first time and this is your first Lupin anime, I would encourage you to go onto the movies or onto the series anime, or at least get a few under your belt before you read the manga. The manga is different character. You know, the characters are a lot different. As a matter of fact, Fujiko doesn't appear for like about 10 or 15 chapters. What they did was they actually named each female character, had a first name of Fujiko for each character that they did. So then he got tired. Monkey Punch got tired of having to come up with a new woman, with a different last name, and calling her Fujiko. So he just kind of took all the different characteristics and made one Fujiko, and came up with a name which has a lot to do with summit, mountains, things like that, for odd reason. and Lupin in the manga was
huge tract of land.
And Lupin in the manga is a lot of people use the word ruthless. He's not really a killer, but when he does kill, it's not just a simple off the panel moment. You see what he does, and he treats women in a very. It surprised me when I finally read the manga, because I saw the anime first, and the manga I was like, the first few panels I'm just like. He was really nice to that little girl in the movie. And he's like forcing this. Oh, okay. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So the anime characters are different shades, lighter shades of what's in the manga. Is what I guess I'm trying to say. And you still have that fun looseness, and availability, and also you don't get as much of the team in the manga that you do in the anime. In the anime, Fujiko, Goemon, Jigen, and Lupin almost always come together at some point in the episode. They all come together, kind of like how they did in the movie. In the manga, Jigen is really the only partner that Lupin has. The rest of them come in from time to time. As a matter of fact, Goyoman is in the manga at some point is supposed to kill Lupin.
Ah.
They're actually enemies. They came off as enemies first, and
Yeah.
and so the manga is going to be different. So anyone out there who watches Castle Cagliostro, which I highly recommend you do, stick with the anime before you hit the manga because it'll be a little bit confusing.
Also, the Monkey Punch's art style for the manga
style.
is very distinctive. He was actually inspired by Mad Magazine, of all things. So if you think of just kind of that very, loose, kind of sketchy style, it's very detailed, but it's very loose in that kind of sort of Mad Magazine, indie American comic style.
Interesting.
Doesn't have the cleanness of a Rumiko Takahashi, for example.
So it's Mad Magazine style or cracked? Because there's big qualitative difference there. If it's cracked, then it's just junk.
Yeah,
if it's mad, then it's totally classic.
There we go. Exactly. Any other thoughts?
Anybody even know what I'm talking about anymore?
Yeah, the last Mad Magazine was what, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
When was the last cracked?
Right.
Like what, 20 years ago?
Yeah, right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
any other thoughts on Castle Cagliostro? I know I talked a lot.
Well, you talked a lot, and then nobody heard you, and then you talked a lot again. Which I hope we covered everything that you weren't heard.
I think so.
I think we did. I think we covered it pretty effectively.
I think we did, yeah.
I certainly thank you for the recommendation and for having this this Lupin experience.
You're welcome. It is definitely a favored movie of mine, and a great time.
Indeed.
Yeah, it is one of those things where sometimes you'll, a lot of folks remember it, but don't remember exactly all the details, because I think it is, it's a big heist movie. There's a lot going on.